देवाय ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयम् उदीरयेत् नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवतीरुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकीनन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Um, can I get the rights to share my screen?
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Okay. So, Hare Krishna, dear devotees, we are reading today from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, which is called the Samambonam, and chapter 79, entitled Lord Balaram Goes on Pilgrimage. So, today we'll be covering verses 25 to 30. So, I plan to focus on the verse 30. So, is it okay if I do word for word only for the verse 30, or do I do it for all of them? Okay. So, for the others, we'll do the Sanskrit and read the translation and purports. Hare Krishna. So, this is verse 25. Gadapani ubhau drishtva samrabdhau vijayaishinau mandalani vichitrani charantav idam abravit. Translation. Lord Balaram found Duryodhan and Bhima with clubs in their hands, each furiously striving for victory over the other as they circled about skillfully. The Lord then addressed them as follows. Yuvam tulya balau virau, he rajan he vrikodhara, ekam pranadhikam manye, utaikam shikshayadhikam. Lord Balaram said, King Duryodhan and Bhima, listen, you two warriors are equal in fighting prowess. I know that one of you has greater physical power, while the other is better trained in technique. Purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Bhima was physically more powerful, but Duryodhan was more advanced in terms of technique. तस्माद् एकतरस्येह युवयोः समवीर्ययोः न लक्ष्यते जयोन्यो वा वीरमत्वफलो रणः. Since you are so evenly matched in fighting prowess, I don't see how either of you can win or lose this duel. Therefore, please stop this useless battle. न तद्वाक्यं जगृहतुर् बद्धवैरौ नृपार्थवत् अनुस्मरन्ताव अन्योन्यम duruktam dushkrutani cha. Shukdev Goswami continued, they did not accept Lord Balaram's request, O king, although it was logical, for their mutual enmity was irrevocable. Each of them constantly remembered the insults and injuries he had suffered from the other. Dishtam tad anumanvano ramo dvaravatim yayau ugrasenadibhi pritair jnatibhi samupagataha. Concluding that the battle was the arrangement of fate, Lord Balaram went back to Dwarka. There he was greeted by Ugrasen and his other relatives, who were all delighted to see him. Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti explains that the word Dishtam, fate, indicates that the battle between Bhima and Duryodhan had been enjoined by Lord Krishna and set into motion by him. And this is the focus verse for today. Tam punarnaimisham praptam rishayo yajayan muda kratvangam kratubhi sarvair Nivritta khila vigraham. So we'll do word for word here. Tam, him, Lord Balaram. Punaha, again. Naimisham, at Naimisharanya. Praptam, arrived. Rishayaha, the sages. Ayajayan, engaged in performing Vedic sacrifices. Muda, with pleasure. Kratu, of all sacrifices. Angam, the embodiment. Kratubihi, with ritualistic performances. Sarvaihi, all varieties. Nivritta, who had renounced. Akhila, all. Vigraham, warfare. Translation. Later, Lord Balaram returned to Naimisharanya, where the sages joyfully engaged him, the embodiment of all sacrifice, in performing various kinds of Vedic sacrifice. Lord Balaram was now retired from warfare. Purport. Srila Prabhupada writes, when Lord Balaram went to the holy place of pilgrimage at Naimisharanya, the sages, saintly persons, and Brahmanas all stood up to receive him. They understood that Lord Balaram, although a Kshatriya, was now retired from the fighting business. The Brahmanas and the sages, who were always for peace and tranquility, were very pleased at this. All of them embraced Balaram with great affection and induced him to perform various kinds of sacrifices in that sacred spot of Naimisharanya. Actually, Lord Balaram had no business in performing the sacrifices recommended for ordinary human beings. He is the supreme personality of Godhead, and therefore, he himself is the enjoyer of all such sacrifices. As such, his exemplary action in performing sacrifices was only to give a lesson to the common man to show how one should abide by the injunctions of the Vedas. उमज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमः ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिन् इति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्यनामिने गौरत्विषे नमः हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी श्री राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घायते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारणम् Hare Krishna. Thank you, dear devotees. I hope you can see my screen. If not, please let me know. So, yeah, I seek blessings from all of you so that we can discuss something um, which is pleasing to all of us, which uplifts all of us in Krishna consciousness and takes us closer to Krishna, and so that I can speak in line with the Guru Parampara in the mood of humble service. Hare Krishna. So after Jainitai Prabhu's beautiful class yesterday, which took us on a pilgrimage of all the wonderful places in India, today we will see what do devotees do in such places of pilgrimage, or as devotees anywhere in general, right? That is the process of sacrifices, yajna that Krishna mentions, and in this verse also in the 30th verse, which is it says that Lord Balaram, he after trying to stop the fight between Bhima and Duryodhan, he is coming back to the uh, not coming back, rather, he comes to the Naimisharanya, where the sages are engaged in performing various sacrifices. And he joins them. And it says how that Lord Balaram, although he's actually the beneficiary of all such sacrifices. Bhuktaram yagya tapasam in Bhagavad Gita 5.29, Krishna says. So, despite being the beneficiary of all sacrifices, being the Supreme Lord, still Balaram is setting an example of performing sacrifices. And the Lord does this quite often. He sets an example, by himself descending, or he makes an example out of someone, as we see in Srimad Bhagavatam in so many places. And so, coming to yajna, right? Yajna, since Lord Balaram is engaged in performing yajna in Naimisharanya, I thought I'll focus on the concept of yajna. So Prabhupada often talks about yajna in various of his purports, and he writes that yajna is actually another name for Vishnu. And Vishnu is also known as Krishna, is also known as Yajneshwara. So Prabhupada writes that the supremost person who is to be worshipped through yajnas or sacrifices is Lord Krishna or Vishnu. So what is a yajna, right? A yajna is something that is done in the mood of sacrifice. So the Sanskrit translation of the word yajna is sacrifice. So when we do something with the mood of sacrificing something that is dear to us for some purpose, that essentially is yajna. And we'll see various types of yajna and various types of the consciousness behind performing yajnas. So in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says there are certain things in the Bhagavad Gita, like let's say one person is giving some instructions to another person, and let's say this person who is giving instructions at one point says that you should do these. I'm telling you all these things, but there are certain things that you should always do. There are certain things that are of prime importance. And Krishna does that in various places in the Gita. He offers his own opinion in various places in the Gita. And certain statements are very superlative, that Sarva Dharman Parityajya, you just give up all varieties of religion and surrender unto me, Krishna says. So similarly, Krishna talks about yajna, dana, and tapa in Bhagavad Gita 18.5. Yajna dana tapah karma natyajyam karyam eva tat yajñodanam tapaschaiva pavanani manishinam. So here Krishna says acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance are not to be given up. They must be performed. Indeed, sacrifice, charity, and penance purify even the great souls. So Krishna is emphasizing that the acts of charity, sacrifice, and penance are never to be given up. So yajna is something that is never to be given up, right? And interestingly, he says this in the 18th chapter. Interestingly, in the 10th chapter, where Krishna is explaining to Arjuna how Arjuna can see Krishna in the world around him, and there he lists out various things, that of the archers I'm Arjuna, of the trees I'm the banyan tree, of so many things. And then finally Krishna says, I'm the best of everything. Whatever splendorous things you see around you, just know that they are but a spark of my splendor. So Krishna helps Arjuna to remember Krishna by seeing the world around him, by telling him how that he himself is the essence of all the good things that we see around us, all the wonderful things that we see around us. And in course of doing that, Krishna says something interesting. So here Krishna is saying that never give up yajna. And in the 10th chapter, Krishna says that yajnanam japa yajñosmi, of sacrifices I am the chanting of the holy names of Krishna, that is japa. So in one sense, if we are to put these two things together, then on our level, the lesson is that we should never give up japa. And we'll also see how this chanting of the holy names is actually the essence of all yajna in Kali Yuga. right? So that is, some introduction to this particular section. So in the entire Srimad Bhagavatam, we see a spectrum of yajnas. Various people perform yajnas, and many stories in the Srimad Bhagavatam take place in the backdrop of some form of yajna. For example, and these yajnas may not all be yajnas for a good purpose. They could be yajnas for any purpose. For example, the sages of Naimisharanya. It is said that the sages of Naimisharanya, even in the beginning of the Bhagavatam, in the first canto, the sages of Naimisharanya have gathered there to offer sacrifices for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord, for the pleasure of Vishnu. It's Bhagavatam says, and similarly for the welfare of humanity, right? That is the duty of the Brahmana class, that for the welfare of humanity, for the pleasure of the Lord, perform sacrifices. So that is one example where the sages of Naimisharanya are performing yajnas for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. Then there is a Rajasuya sacrifice. So Rajasuya yajna, which Yudhishthir Maharaj performed, is a very special kind of yajna because it has a worldly aspect to it, in the sense that Yudhishthir Maharaj is establishing himself as the emperor of the world. That is the external reason. But internally, Yudhishthir Maharaj, since he is a very dear devotee and friend of Krishna, he wants to offer, the highest respect to Krishna. He wants to glorify Krishna through the Rajasuya yajna, and that's why he offers him the Agra Puja at the end of the yajna. And we saw in the previous chapters how that act of giving Krishna the highest respect then instigated Shishupal to start criticizing Krishna and the deliverance of Shishupal. We'll talk more about Rajasuya Yagya as well. Then there is the Indra Yajna that the Vrajavasis wanted to perform. So the Vrajavasis wanted to perform this sacrifice for Indra because Indra is the superintendent of rainfall. And being from the mercantile class, being from the Vaishya community, the cowherd men, they knew that only if Indra sends rains, then that will help them in agriculture, and that's how their livelihood will go on. But we know how Krishna very beautifully opposes this Indra Yajna, and Krishna's opposition actually forms the basis of the entire Govardhan pastime, where Indra sends the torrential rains, and then Krishna, in order to save the residents of Vrindavan from undergoing the trouble of facing that rain, they were destructive rains, and then Krishna held up the Govardhan hill for 7 days. Then there is the Ashwamedha Yajna, or the Ashwa is horse, so Ashwamedha Yajna is horse sacrifice. And this was performed by Prithu Maharaj. We see in the fourth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So Prithu Maharaj is performing this Ashwamedha Yajna, and we see how he has planned to perform 100 of these Ashwamedha Yajnas. But then it so happens that as the number keeps going close to 100, Lord Indra is becoming insecure, because the as per the Shastras, if anyone is able to perform 100 Ashwamedha Yajnas successfully, then that person takes the post of Indra. So Indra becomes very insecure. He thinks, oh my God, this Ritu Maharaj is going to take my post. And then he starts doing various kinds of things to stop the yajna from happening. And then Lord Brahma, seeing that Lord Indra is behaving in such a way, Lord Brahma then comes and tells him that, look, Prithu Maharaj, you have done 99 of these Ashwamedha yajnas, and Lord Vishnu is pleased. Your intent was to please Lord Vishnu. So Lord Vishnu is pleased. So don't worry about it. Don't do this 100th yajna and bring out more negative qualities out of this Indra. And Prithu Maharaj stops there. And despite not being able to complete his sankalpa of performing 100 yajnas, because Prithu Maharaj's consciousness was in the right place, the Lord Vishnu was pleased with him, right? And then there is also the yajna that the Brahmanas are performing in Vrindavan, when Krishna and Balaram sent the cowherd men to bring food from these Brahmanas, but then they are so distracted in their yajnas that they are actually ignoring the highest purpose, the highest object of performing the yajnas that they are performing, that is Krishna. the pleasure of Krishna. And then there are many others, like personalities being born out of yajnas. Like there is Vritrasur, then in Mahabharata it says Draupadi and Drishtadyumna also are born out of yajnas and things like that. So there are so many stories. Then there is this animal sacrifices of King Prachina Barhishat. This comes in the fourth canto again. And then it describes, Bhagavatam describes how Narad Muni comes and tells Prachina, preaches to Prachina Bharishat, and that way he gets purified by hearing from a great soul like Narad Muni, and so many other, examples of yajnas. So the Bhagavatam is filled with such stories which happen in the backdrop of yajnas. So it goes to show that yajnas are an important part of Vedic life. So anyway, we saw this spectrum of yajna, right? So we saw this spectrum of yajna, which happens, and we'll try to go deeper into this intent of yajna, because all these yajnas, they are done for a particular purpose, and we'll see what those purposes are. We'll try to categorize them in light of Prabhupada's purports. So anyway, a question to all of you. Yajna means sacrifice. We already discussed that. So what is one quality that becomes an essential quality if we have to remain true to the spirit of sacrifice? Anyone? One quality. When you think about the word sacrifice, what is the one quality that is needed to be?
Humility.
Humility. Yes, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Love.
Kind of related to humility is what I was looking for. But yes, humility is great. Humility, genuine humility will give rise to that quality. So any other ideas? Any other quality? Cleanliness,
Gratitude.
gratitude. Yes, yes. Gratitude is closer to the thing I'm looking for. Yes.
Generosity.
Punctuality, absolutely. Yeah.
Surrender.
Surrender, yes, yes.
Love.
So in surrender,
Can you?
love, yes, love is the highest
Krishna,
manifestation of that quality. But anyway, we'll get into it. So that is selflessness, and that is what Krishna also mentions. We'll see that later. But anyway, going to the intent behind yajnas, right? So in Vedic life, yajnas are performed for various things, various purposes. So one category of yajnas are yajnas for material benefit. We in India especially, you want to achieve something, then you perform a yajna. So you please that particular demigod who is going to offer that particular benediction. You offer a yajna or a sacrifice to that demigod, and then you get what you want. And yajnas also happen we all know yajnas also happen in Bhakti Center, for example, when there are some milestones in devotees' lives. For example, someone gets married, a yajna happens, or one Mataji gets pregnant, then there is yajna that happens for the well-being of the child in the womb and the mother. Then the child is born, then there is the naming ceremony, part of which is also a yajna. And there are so many milestones in the life of a human, a soul in a human body. And in each of these milestones, it is recommended that one perform a yajna, and which is accompanied by various things. And then Bhagavad Gita also talks about yajnas for heavenly pleasures. So people want, after this lifetime, they want to be promoted to a heavenly planet. And that is why there are certain yajnas that are performed, which is mentioned in 9.20. So there is this aspect of worldly benefit in yajnas that happens. And that is one aspect of yajnas. And then the other aspect of yajnas is that these sacrifices are performed for a higher cause. And the examples of this are the sages at Naimisharanya, which is mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam. And then Harinam Sankirtan, right, is one yajna that is that is actually the highest yajna in Kali Yuga. And there is this famous verse, Srimad Bhagavatam 11:5-32. Krishnavarnam tvisha Krishnam Sangopangastra Parshadam Yajnai Sankirtanah Prayair Yajanti Sumedhasaha. So this verse says that intelligent people in Kali Yuga worship that form of Krishna who is golden in color. So Krishna Varanam Tusha Krishnam. And what does that golden form do? He Yajnai Sankirtana Prayai. So he propagates the chanting of the holy names, Harinam Sankirtan, all over the world. So Bhagavatam is actually predicting Lord Chaitanya's appearance in this world. And similarly, there is this Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela verse, which we'll see next. And then we also saw Japa being a yajna, chanting of the holy names in a private setting on beads being one form of yajna, which actually Krishna mentions that he is that yajna. Yajnanam japa yajñosmi. So in 18.5, we saw that Krishna says yajna should never be stopped. But then in 18.6, the verse right after that, Krishna mentions that there is a certain quality to these sacrifices, and that is that these things should be done selflessly. And Prabhupada translates this 18.6 as all these activities should be performed without attachment or any expectation of result. They should be performed as a matter of duty, O son of Pritha. That is my final opinion. So again, Krishna is offering his opinion here, right? He is offering his opinion that selflessness is the best virtue when we perform any kind of sacrifice or yajna, Krishna is saying. Now there are these yajnas that can be done for worldly benefit, and then there are these yajnas that can be done for a higher cause. But the beauty of Krishna consciousness is that the yajnas for worldly benefits, they can actually be dovetailed for a higher cause, that is to please Krishna. And that happens through Krishna consciousness. So the yajnas may be worldly, there may be a worldly component to the yajnas, but because the person performing the yajnas is Krishna conscious, really sincerely wants to please Krishna, that yajna becomes actually a spiritual yajna. It becomes spiritual in nature. And the examples here are Prithu Maharaj. He is performing the Ashwamedha Yajna. Granted, there is a worldly component to it in the sense that the kingdom should be prosperous. There should be nice vegetation. There should be abundance for all the citizens and whatnot, and the kingdom should flourish. But there is the central component of pleasing Lord Vishnu through the yajna. Similarly, Yudhishthir Maharaj, he is performing this Rajasuya sacrifice, Rajasuya Yajna. And we know before that Yajna, he sent all his 4 brothers in all 4 directions to conquer all the kings, so that Yudhishthir Maharaj can be instated as the emperor of the entire world. And so that worldly component is there of Rajasuya Yajna, that Yudhishthir Maharaj is to be the emperor, and then there should be, the kingdom should be prosperous and whatnot. But then what does he do with that? He takes that yajna, Rajasuya yajna, and he offers the highest respect to Krishna. And that way he spiritualizes that yajna. And then finally, Arjuna. So this is also an interesting point, that when Arjuna sees the universal form of Krishna, and this is described in the 11th chapter, he's seeing that this universal form is like a blazing fire, and then these soldiers, or the Kaurava soldiers, they are actually going they are going like moths into this fire. So one by one, they are being offered into this fire. And the acharyas say that this particular vision was given to Arjuna to make him understand that this battlefield of Kurukshetra this battle is not just some battle for some worldly gain in terms of winning the kingdom, but this is also a dharma yudh, or a religious or a dharmic war, where Krishna wants to show Arjuna that these warriors who are demoniac in nature, they are actually being offered as a yajna, offered as oblations into the universal form, the fire of the universal form, and Arjuna is the priest offering that. So acharyas say that that is one reason why Krishna shows this universal form and this particular aspect of universal form, which is akin to a yajna happening. So, and Prabhupada writes in in one of the purports in the Gita again that how this Krishna consciousness spiritualizes everything. So Prabhupada writes, becoming fully Krishna conscious, one is freed from all dualities and thus is free from the contaminations of material modes. He can become liberated because he knows his constitutional position in relationship with Krishna, and thus his mind cannot be drawn from Krishna consciousness. Now, this is important. Consequently, whatever he does for Krishna, who is the primeval Vishnu. Therefore, all his works are technically sacrifices because sacrifice aims at satisfying the Supreme Person, Vishnu, Krishna. So, in this way, Prabhupada is writing that how when we develop a nice Krishna conscious attitude, we will have to do certain yajna, certain sacrifices for some worldly benefit, which is needed. It's not that we are not a world rejecting tradition. We are a world, Chaitanya Charan Prabhu puts it very nicely. Karmis romanticize the world because karmis are always after, again, to say karmis is not a very good thing, but we need to look at them compassionately. But then karmis romanticize the world. Those who are fruitively inclined and always hedonistic in nature, they romanticize the world. Jnanis on the other extreme of the spectrum, or those who are jnanis are those who are in pursuit of impersonal knowledge. They demonize the world because they say the world is an illusion, don't get caught up in it and whatnot. But on the other hand, bhaktas, devotees who are practicing bhakti yoga, they utilize the world. So yes, there are certain things we have been given by Krishna, certain talents on a material level that we have been given, certain skills or certain abilities. But then these things could be utilized in Krishna's service. So similarly, these yajnas, these sacrifices for worldly benefit can be utilized in Krishna's service. That is what Krishna consciousness gives us. That right orientation to dovetail everything to Krishna. So anyway, so that was one thing. And then finally, the essence of yajna in Kali Yuga, of all yajna in Kali Yuga. And there is this nice verse that comes in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Sankirtana Pravartaka Shri Krishna Chaitanya Sankirtana Yajne Tare Bhaje Sei Dhanya Seita Sumedha Ara Kubuddhi Samsar Sarva Yajna Haite Krishna Nama Yajna Sar. Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya is the initiator of Sankirtan, congregational chanting of the holy name of the Lord. One who worships him through Sankirtan is fortunate indeed. Such a person is truly intelligent, whereas others who have but a poor fund of knowledge must endure the cycle of repeated birth and death. Of all sacrificial performances, the chanting of the Lord's holy name is the most sublime. So I recently went to a doctor for some foot pain, shin pain that I'm experiencing. So they did a lot of X-rays, and the doctor asked me a bunch of questions. She answered all my questions, prescribed a treatment that I knew she would prescribe. And then she told me to do one particular exercise, and she said this will really help me ease the pain. And because it targets the specific region where the pain is. And then while coming back from there, I was thinking that, okay, what new thing did she tell me? I knew that she is going to give me the treatment that she gave me. And this exercise, I could have searched on YouTube and found it easily. And I did that. I searched for that exercise. I found it right away. So I was thinking whether did I waste my time and money for this? Then I thought to myself, it's not totally like that, right? Because there is a lot of knowledge out there on YouTube. But what the doctor gave me was the essence of it, suitable to my individual situation. So similarly, the Vedas are a vast body of knowledge containing immense, knowledge about so many things, including about yajnas or sacrifices. But the essence of all such knowledge is, is given by Lord Chaitanya for us, which is Harinam Sankirtan. Krishna Nama Yajna is the Sarva Yajna Sar, or the essence of all yajnas. So it is also said that whatever specific seva we may do, whatever specific sadhana we may do, like hearing, reading, discussing, serving the deities, serving in the temple, everything, all that is supposed to bring us to the point of chanting Shuddha Nam, or pure holy names, offenseless chanting of the holy names. So that is the specific gift of Lord Chaitanya to all of us, and that is the specific gift that Srila Prabhupada brought to the Western world. So he's like that, Prabhupada is like that doctor for us, who gave that medicine of holy name, in the right atmosphere, in the right, in a particular way that it was supposed to be given, and then started the Hare Krishna movement. So yes, that is the essence of all yajna, that is Harinam Sankirtan. So now this is not to mean that we don't do any other yajnas. That is not the point here. The point is that yajnas can be performed for other purposes, but we need to remember that ultimately it is supposed to bring us to this Harinam Sankirtan yajna. Right. And even I've observed this, I don't know, Jainitai Prabhu, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but any yajna that we perform in the Hare Krishna movement, be it during initiation, be it during marriage ceremonies, all these yajnas are actually accompanied by the Harinam Sankirtan yajna. There is chanting of the holy names that is accompanied. That is an important thing that happens along with these yajnas. So yeah. So finally, Lord Balaram and Lord Nityananda, right? So Lord Balaram, who is performing yajnas at Naimisharanya, I didn't find a picture of Lord Balaram at Naimisharanya. So I got this picture of Lord Balaram, purifying or delivering Romaharsha. So that same Lord Balaram who killed Romaharsha with a blade of grass, that same Lord Balaram appears as Lord Nityananda, and he requests all of us to chant the holy names. Just like he's setting an example of performing sacrifices, he's setting the example of performing the Harinam Sankirtan, the greatest sacrifice in Kali Yuga. So that's all I had, dear devotees. Sorry, I went 4 minutes above 7:50. Yeah. Hare Krishna.
Jagannath Gopal Prabhu, nice class. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So I was just thinking, one thing, that last picture you showed, if I'm not mistaken, the killing of Romaharsha and Sutta did happen at Naimisharanya. So that you mentioned earlier that Balaram did return back there. That was his return trip this time when he did sacrifices. So I think it says everyone was happy to see him because he had finished all his warfare, so he wasn't going to probably kill anybody else. So, and I was thinking one yogi you left out. I was thinking of I think it's 3:9. Yogi Shashastano Santo Muchanti Sarva Kilbishad Vajante Te Togam Papa Yapachanti Atmana Karana. This Prasadam Yagya, which is one of the favorite yagyas in the Hare Krishna movement. So I thought I'd add that yagya in there. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Yes. Yes. Hugo Prabhu has. Do you want to say something, Prabhu?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you for class, Prabhu. I wanted to particularly appreciate the anecdote that you gave about your visit to the doctor and how you reflected, like, oh, whatever my doctor told me, I already knew that was going to happen, or I could find it on YouTube. But then your reflection that, well, there's so much information out there on YouTube, but the doctor gave you the essence. And I really connected that. It's like, I immediately thought of Guru Tattva, and essentially that's what Guru does. Because, I mean, especially now with the internet, like anything you want to find, you can find the Bhagavad Gita, the Srimad Bhagavatam, even the esoteric texts of the Goswamis. You can just search on Google and find PDFs of
Yeah.
whatever, Ujjvala Nilamani and Namamanatam Vyakaram and like any text that you can possibly think of. But Srila Prabhupada emphasizes again and again in his books, it's not enough to just read. It's not enough to just read the text or even memorize verses or what have you, but the spiritual master needs to be there to essentially point us to what's relevant to us at a particular moment of time, how we're meant to apply it, why it's important, and even sometimes steer us away from things that might distract us. So I really appreciated that anecdote. I immediately thought of Guru Tattva and how Guru helps us focus in on this vast corpus of knowledge to what will actually be important for our spiritual life.
Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. Thank you. So that was a beautiful reflection, Prabhu. Thank you. I was actually talking to Vasudev Prabhu long ago, and he was saying that in all the Upanishads, one of the most important verses in all of the Upanishads is Yasya deve parabhaktiri yatha deve tatha guru. So this verse says that the one who has, implicit faith in the Lord as well as implicit faith in the Guru, only to such a person are the imports of Vedic knowledge revealed. So it is very important that we approach a guru. And interestingly, in the Gita also, in that section in the 4th chapter, Krishna talks about various types of yajnas. And then Prabhupada primarily categorizes them as two types: yajnas that are done by giving up material possessions, and yajnas that are done out of knowledge. So, and Prabhupada mentions that out of these two, Krishna says that the second one, that is yajnas or sacrifices performed out of knowledge, are better. And then that is the context where that famous verse 4.34 comes. Tadvidhi pranipatena. Approach, if you want to learn the truth, approach a spiritual master, hear from him, humbly serve him. And when we do that, the seer of truth, Tattvadarshi, they will reveal the truth to us. They will show the truth to us. So, yeah. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. There are some messages in the chat. Yes, thank you, Jeffrey Prabhu. That is a nice quote. Yes. Yeah, Prabhupada often focused on dovetailing. Yeah.
Thank you, Jagannath Gopal Prabhu. Wonderful class. Very briefly, what do we say to people who say that all these yagyas don't work in Kali Yuga, only Sankirtan yagya works, so all the other yagyas are useless? What do we say to that? Is that a balanced approach? What do we make of it?
Only Sankirtan Yajna. I mean, again, right, Sankirtan Yajna has a purpose, which is to invoke love for Krishna. But then there are other yajnas that have other purposes, and based on the individual need of the person who is involved in the process, that particular yajna has to be performed. I mean, just for a very, very simple example, right? Somebody is somebody, let's say, gets diagnosed with pre-diabetes, for example, or diabetes, for example. So the yajna for them, sacrifice for them, is to give up sugar. Now, if this devotee comes and says, hey, what, man, what, no yajna works in Kali Yuga, what will you do by giving up sugar? Just chant Hare Krishna. That doesn't work, because
Thank you.
the specific need of the person is to do a specific form of yajna. Yes,
Thank you.
the holy name can accompany it, but that can not be the sole yajna that needs to be performed. Yeah,
Thank you,
I
Prabhu.
others can chime in. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Jagannath Gopal Prabhu. Darshan time. Narottam Nitai Prabhu, stick around, please. We're going to pause for darshan. Put on your best look, like Jeffrey Eckler. His grave look. He's taking Krishna seriously, I can tell.
Shri Radha Murida Gora Chandra Nisima Bhagavana Ki Srila Prabhupada Ki.
Hare Krishna, welcome to the Afterglow. Sundaranandaji asked a wonderful question. What does it mean to be selfless? And Jagannath Gopal Prabhu replied by saying, selfless means Krishna in the center. Selfless does not mean without a self. We have our little self, but Krishna is in the center. Thank you, Jagannath Gopal Prabhu, for that very important clarification. Narottam Nitai Prabhu.
Dandavats. Yeah, I asked this question because I remember the devotees talking about Srila Prabhupada establishing the Krishna Balaram temple in Vrindavan and how some of the local devotees were chanting Vedic mantras while most of the devotees were chanting Hare Krishna. So my question is, coming from like a traditional like Indian background, we're tradition like I'm coming from the traditional line of worship of Lord Ganesh, and sometimes when I chant those mantras, it does enliven like a different type of mood at me, and I can feel it now that I'm chanting Hare Krishna more regularly. So I guess my question is it okay for devotees of various backgrounds to like do those things that they were previously doing from their heritage or from their traditional line along with the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra? Because sometimes it helps to connect more with that traditional line and give more of a Krishna conscious perspective on things. I guess also because like it in like, I don't know, like because it's not only just chanting, we also read Srila Prabhupada's books, we do seva, we have to work. So there's a lot of things I guess we all have to do. So my question is like, is it okay to do both those things parallelly? And will that help?
So that's a good question. I mean, I relate to that a lot because I myself have been brought up in a particular background wherein my family are Kula Devi, or in India many of these families they have Kula Devatas, or the family gods and goddesses. So our family god is a particular manifestation of Durga Devi called Banashankari. And that's how I grew up. I grew up learning the mantras to glorify her, and that's how I grew up. Now, whether we do that being once coming to the path of Krishna consciousness and getting the Hare Krishna mantra, and whether we should do that, I guess there is no harm in doing it, is what the general guideline is of what I've heard. There is no harm in doing it as long as we know the who is the supreme, as long as we know that uh, you know uh, that yes, I have devotion to this particular deity, and that devotion also needs to be somewhat selfless in nature, is what I've understood it as. And the best way I reconcile the two things is you pray to this deity to give you Krishna consciousness. So that's what I do. So even now, when every year when I go to India, I we it's like a thing that we do in the family. Every year we visit this place once of our family god. And then previously I would go there, and I remember before coming to Krishna consciousness, I would, hey, Hari Bol Ram, Hare Krishna. So before coming to Krishna consciousness, I would go there and ask for so many things, like give me good marks, give me good admission to a good college and whatnot. But then after coming to Krishna consciousness, I realized that I don't have to give it up. But then I changed my prayer when I go there. So I go there and pray that, okay, Durga Devi, you are a servant of Krishna. You're taking care of the world. So you please engage me in Krishna's service. Engage me in the service of your own Lord, right? And that way also, if you look at it, if a person comes to a demigod and says, give me this, give me that, give me this material benefit, give me a good wife, give me a good life, give me money, give me wealth and whatnot, then they are like, yeah, I mean, okay, take it. But then if that same person goes to this demigod and says, dear demigod, please give me love for Krishna, who is your own Lord, then that demigod will be more pleased to push you in that direction. Actually, I this is my personal understanding. So, and what I usually do is I try to meditate on verses that connect the two deities. For example, you mentioned Lord Ganesh, right? Lord Ganesh has also been a very important part of my life growing up. And there is this verse in Brahma Samhita, Yat Pada Pallava Yugam Vinidhaya Kumbha. Yat Pada Palla Yugam Vinidhaya Kumbha Dvandve Pranama Samaye Sa Ganadi Raja Vignan Vihantum Alamasya Jagatrayasya Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. So, what this verse means is Lord Ganesh, who is the Vignaharta, Vignan Vihantum, right? He is set to remove obstacles from the path of whatever the person wants to do. So, and this verse says, and then I've heard devotees speak that the Vignaharta quality, the quality of removing obstacles that is there in Lord Ganesh, the source of that quality is the supreme obstacle remover. And who is that supreme obstacle remover? Can anyone say? Who is that supreme Lord who removes obstacles, or the form of the supreme Lord who removes obstacles?
Lord Nrsimhadev.
Lord Nrsimhadev. So yes, exactly. So the power of Lord Ganesh to remove obstacles is actually coming from Lord Nrsimha, is what I've heard in classes. So, and this verse also says that he worships Krishna. So in that sense, we can meditate on that. And, I mean, it is not needed, is what I've heard, but then if we have that tendency, if we have that upbringing, then there is no uh, need to give it up. Rather, we could dovetail it, right? Coming back to the point of dovetailing everything, we could dovetail it in Krishna's service and pray. We can go there and say, Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha. They are a Vaishnava, they are very elevated Vaishnavas. Lord Ganesha is a pure devotee. Durga Devi is a pure devotee. And these are all pure devotees of the Lord. And if they and we, it's in our tradition, das dasanudas, right? Das dasanudas is what we want to become, servant of the servant, but it has to be in the right mood. So that way we can dovetail it. So yeah, these are just some of my thoughts, Prabhu. Yeah, I don't think you need
Thank you.
to stop, but
Yeah, I know.
then we can be in the right consciousness when we do it, rather
Yeah.
than asking them for some material benefits, which, yeah, I mean, we could do that, but still, and again, that state of the heart is very internal. We can't, no one from outside can understand that state of heart, state of our own heart. So that we have to individually see, like where our heart is.
Yeah,
So,
my whole premise of asking is because we also have to understand the philosophy. We're not at the stage of like Haridas Thakur where we just chant all day, every day, and we're not like Ayendra Prabhu that we could just give up everything and start 24-hour kirtan in Vrindavan. So
yeah.
in order to like come to that understanding of Krishna consciousness to a point of in that growing stage, that's my point of view of asking. So thank you, Prabhuji. My dandavats to all of you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Yeah, we give up things like smoking, drinking, those things. Those we give up. Everything else can be dovetailed, especially worshiping God. And Srila Prabhupada says Jesus is our guru, right?
Yeah.
There's no harm in that. Okay, Bhima Prabhu has his hand up.
Haribol. Can you hear me okay? I'm in a stall.
We can hear you, Prabhu.
This is a tough one. If we are at all hoping for anything in this world, despite all our dovetailing, and sometimes dovetailing, agatar sukriti, can be you can get in trouble because you can use it as an excuse
Yes.
to become excited about things. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. We're in this world. We made a choice. At least we're heading towards Krishna. But we always have to be reminded, and we're told in the songs of the Acharyas, the drop on the petal of a lotus leaf, we always have to be reminded that we are in a dream, and it's over with very quickly. And that if we hold on to any type of affection for this material world and the byproducts, that we will come back to sleep again in the lap of Maya. And that's the important thing, to always remember. It doesn't mean that one doesn't learn to love your family and love the devotees and everything like that.
Yeah.
But it's a love of a transparent via media of Krishna, not that we're hanging on, but that we're giving Krishna to others, hopefully by our actions. But anyways, I just wanted to say that we can dovetail everything, but we have to be very careful we got to know ourselves. You got to know yourself. What is the shadow psychological condition that has us hanging on to certain elements of material material desire. We have to know what our true desires are. And then all the things that are in the way between us and Krishna is removed automatically by one simple thing, the intensity of our desire for Krishna. Haribol.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for bringing that point in. Yeah. We need to be reminded constantly. And yeah, that is why hearing, reading, and chanting is so important, because when we keep reminding ourselves that, what is the true purpose of life, where am I truly heading, then, although on a transactional level, we may have to do certain things, but then by constantly being reminded of that through our sadhana, we can develop that intensity to finally, make Krishna as the exclusive goal of our existence. So Krishna is the exclusive goal of our existence, but then, yes, we need to be reminded of that in whatever we do. So yeah, thank you very much for bringing that point up, Prabhu. Thank you.
Sleeping in the lap of Maya. Wow.
I remember many years ago, I went to this beach with some friends, and then they were doing this thing where you fly. It was an adventure activity. I don't know what it's called, paragliding. So there is a rope attached to a car, a jeep actually, and then you have a parachute, and then you kind of fly high up, and then the vehicle pulls you. And then I was kind of new that time, so I told this person, I really had a desire, and this person was little philosophical. He knew about reincarnation and whatnot. So I told him that I really had a desire to do this, and I wanted to do this sometime in my life. And then he says, "Well, that's nice. Now you did it, so now you don't have to come back to this world to do it." So it's funny, but yeah. That's true. We could come back if we don't have the right consciousness. We could come back to the world to exercise those desires. But at the same time, Krishna also says that premature renunciation is also not the right thing to do. We have to organically come there. So now that balance is a very internal thing. We have to really, as Prabhuji mentioned, we have to really, really look into our own hearts and see what our true desire is, and then work from there. So yeah, beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you, Jagannath Gopal Prabhu. Okay, and last but not least, Krishna Chandra Prabhu has finally recorded himself chanting Hare Krishna in a karaoke bar. Krishna Chandra Prabhu, do I have your permission to post it in the WhatsApp group?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Were Jagai and Madai there in the bar? Were they throwing things at you?
Not literally. It was a good reception. Everyone was happy.
Okay, wonderful. All right, we can't wait to check it out.
Yeah.
Thank you, Krishna Chandra Prabhu. Thank you, Jagannath Gopal Prabhu. Wonderful class as always. Wow, you're such a qualified Bhagavatam speaker. Thank you. Thank you, Prabhu. Thanks everyone for participating in today's yagya, for being so selfless, giving your attention to the Bhagavatam for the pleasure of Krishna and Prabhupada and the devotees. Thank you. Have a wonderful Friday. Stay sober, like Bhima Prabhu says. Nothing but Krishna in the center. I'm looking at Bhima Prabhu's camera. Is this what's in the center? All right. Okay, Hare Krishna.